WhatsApp groups. We've had loads and loads of questions related to this, and I guess we're getting into kind of that special data category, Leanne. And WhatsApp groups pop up in churches, and prayer groups, support groups, one-to-one discipleship. All these kind of things pop up in these kind of this form of communication. Um, Churches feel very uncomfortable about this whole thing. Who's the admin for this? Who runs this group? How information should be deleted if people leave the group. Some churches, they never even started these WhatsApps, but they've evolved into something which is now processing and storing information. There was lots of questions about this. Have you guys got any thoughts about how churches manage that?
Yeah, I suppose it's certainly not something to be fearful of, is what I would say in the first
Okay.
instance. It can absolutely be managed. I would just say it's maybe something to take ownership of to an extent, or at least make a decision on from a church perspective.
Yeah.
There's nothing inherently wrong with using a WhatsApp group in certain capacities, but you would obviously need to be mindful of potential data protection considerations. Usually, what we would say is if someone is going to endorse the use of a WhatsApp group in a kind of a business capacity, so in the church's capacity, they're going to say,
Mhm.
we'll use WhatsApp in this certain circumstance,
Mm.
then kind of take ownership for it and say, we'll be responsible for the information that's personal data that gets handled via that platform. So again, not something that can't necessarily happen, but if it is going to happen, maybe put a kind of policy in place, something written down that says what that group is intended to be used for and what type of information is going to be put on that group. And it should hopefully mean that it doesn't accidentally stray into another territory
Yeah.
when certain things go on there that maybe are more inappropriate to be discussed in that kind of a platform.
Yeah.
So nothing inherent. And again, it's kind of being considerative as well of people's rights from some in certain circumstances. Again, a common situation that we'll see occur. It's the question that crops up most often is about subject access requests. So
Yeah.
when an organization receives a request for the personal data that they hold about a specific individual, if you're going to use a WhatsApp group as a club or an association and you're going to say we're responsible for that, then in theory, some of the information that's on that WhatsApp group, if it's personal data about the individual that's made this request, you
Yeah.
might need to provide in response in theory. So it's again having contingencies in place to make sure that if that were to happen, you'd be able to get access to some of the information that might be held on there and provide it to somebody if that were to be the case. So again, nothing to be sort of inherently fearful of at all. It's just about making a decision and saying, if we are going to use them, we will use them in as sort of the most appropriate and proportionate way possible.
I was just going to say that every church is going to have, as Harry mentioned there, a social media policy in place, outlining the responsibilities of everyone within those groups,
Right.
regardless of who is admin in them, and what the church's expectations are as well. That's going to kind of help you demonstrate the accountability principle, which is that underpinning principle that puts an obligation on every organisation, regardless of size, to demonstrate exactly what they are doing to us as the regulator, but also to those individuals whose data you're processing. I was just going to touch upon something you mentioned, Gavin, around prayer requests and using
Yeah.
WhatsApp for prayer requests, because I suppose, and again, this is not us kind of putting you off it, it's just looking at some considerations maybe prior to setting up WhatsApp group for that purposes. It's always worth asking whether the church have explored other options, firstly.
Mhm.
Is WhatsApp going to be the most secure way of processing that
Yeah.
special category data, or is there a less privacy intrusive way?
Yeah.
For example, verbally. And the reason I say that is because if I'm submitting a verbal prayer request to a pastor, it's not going to be written down anywhere.
Yeah.
It means that it's not part of the church's relevant finance system, which means it's out of scope of GDPR.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, a different or less privacy intrusive way could be me emailing the pastor with some of the information relating to the individual. And then after the prayer request has been given or delivered in the sermon, then it can be deleted afterwards.
Yeah.
And I suppose that some of the, yeah, like I said, some of the questions is, have they thought about who has access to the data, and is it appropriate and fair for potentially anyone with access to a church member's phone to have access to to Harry's health conditions, for example, that could be in a prayer request.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think we're not going to be able to answer everyone's questions on that, are we? I think people need to go away and think about how they are using these groups, how they need to, look at alternative options of what you're saying. And I think that sounds right. I think we do live in a kind of quick digital age now, don't we? Where, going and seeing a pastor and booking in to see someone for a prayer request is less and less now, where it's more of, here's a quick WhatsApp, would you pray for me, or would you pray for my friend or my mum who's got this, who's got cancer, and and you're like, oh wow, okay, there's a lot of information here. So worthwhile for people to stop and just go, okay, let's think about a strategy for our church of how we do this and do this well. So that covers kind of some of the WhatsApp questions, and it's surprising there was a lot around that, wasn't there? So I think if you've got any more specific questions that you'd like to ask, then please get in contact at questions@thechurchoffice.co.uk. We can pass them on to you, and if we can serve you specifically in this area and helping you to kind of refine that a little bit, then please get in contact.